Oh, whoa. Oh, whoa. Oh, whoa. Quadrilateral. They have 4 sides, have 4 line segments, and 4 angles. 360 degrees on the inside. And we know that using triangles as our guide. What is a rhombus? Congruent sides. The same length is what I'm saying. The size of angles is not important. Rhombus has 4 equal sides, hear my rant. And I was like, polygons, like polygons, like polygons. I know you have to be close, polygons, like polygons, like polygons. I know you have to be close. In squares, well, they can be whatever, and we can classify it all together. Call it a rectangle, parallelogram, I'll call it a rhombus, quadrilateral, and all the angles, 90 degrees, and tickle mix on 4 marks means it's regular. So many names, and I just can't believe all the sides are the same, and I'm like, polygons, polygons, like polygons. I know you have to be close, polygons, polygons, like polygons. I know you have to be close. Penta! When you have 5 sides, since there's 5 letters. There's no other name for that building in DC with all the military bases, it's a pentagon. Next up is hexagon, 6 sides and angles. Get it to 7 sides, it's a septagon. She's an octopus. Count legs when you need sides of an octagon, and N is for number 9. But the same is true of nonagon. 10 years is called a decade. 10 sides a decagon. And now you're memorizing, but need more studyizing. Polygons, like polygons, like polygons. I know you have to be close. Polygons, like polygons, like polygons. I know you have to be close. A closed figure. A closed figure. A closed figure. Closed figure.